In the early 20th century, excavations in the Iraqi deserts offered a new perspective on the true nature of Babylon. Among the ruins, evidence of technologies was discovered that official science deems impossible to have existed thousands of years ago. Such artifacts challenge established views on human progress and prompt a re-evaluation of the potential of ancient cultures. The question arises, could ancient architects have applied physical laws to provide conveniences that are typically considered modern achievements? A positive answer could transform myths into historical reality and confirm that ancestors possessed knowledge that we are only now beginning to uncover. Traditionally, the scientific community has adhered to the idea of simple and sequential human development, from stone tools to iron weapons and then to modern machinery. Within this paradigm, Greek and Roman civilizations were considered the pinnacle of the ancient world, while preceding peoples were perceived as primitive. Artifacts that didn't fit this narrative were long dismissed as anomalies or errors in dating. A shift in these perceptions began to emerge in the mid-19th century. Reports surfaced about objects found in ancient geological layers, whose age remains a subject of fierce debate to this day. As the number of such discoveries grew, so did the realization that the accepted version of history contained significant gaps. A true revolution in research occurred thanks to discoveries made in Mesopotamia. In 1936, near Baghdad, a clay vessel was found containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. 2 years later, in 1938, archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig proposed the theory that this artifact was an ancient galvanic cell. There is also a rather bold hypothesis that similar devices might have been used for electroplating objects with a thin layer of gold. Such discoveries force us to acknowledge that ancient cultures possessed technological secrets whose essence modern science is only beginning to comprehend. The history of these discoveries is full of amazing details. To not miss new stories about the mysteries of the past, you should subscribe to the channel. Among the most impressive discoveries was a pipeline system found beneath the foundation of the main palace complex. Researchers unearthed an entire network of baked clay conduits, laid with astonishing precision for that era. This discovery contradicts common scientific understanding, which posits that ancient peoples either dumped waste directly into the streets or used primitive drainage ditches. Historians claim that advanced sewage and pressurized water systems only became a reality centuries later. However, one of the engineers in the expedition decided to investigate the system's operation and noticed a sealed compound based on natural resin that connected the pipes. This solution ensured water movement under pressure and prevented leakage into the ground. It appeared that millennia before the advent of modern metropolises, Babylonians already enjoyed conveniences that we consider attributes of our own era. During work in the city's residential area, archaeologists discovered unusual glass plates, hidden under centuries of dust, in a house presumably belonging to a wealthy merchant. These items were perfectly transparent and featured a characteristic thickening at the center. In scientific circles, the prevailing opinion is that ancient glass was cloudy, imperfect, and only suitable for making beads and simple jewelry. Scholars insist the technology for producing quality lenses was not mastered until the Middle Ages at the earliest. Nevertheless, when one of the excavators accidentally placed a plate over a clay tablet with tiny symbols, they unexpectedly magnified and became perfectly clear. This was an ordinary magnifying glass, crafted by an artisan who understood the laws of optics long before the formal establishment of physics. This small artifact radically changed perceptions of the methods ancient sages might have used to explore the world and celestial bodies. No less surprising to researchers were the metal tools discovered. In one workshop, saws and drills made from an alloy that had not corroded over millennia were found. According to the official historical version, masters of that era used only soft metals like copper or bronze. It is generally believed that simple friction with abrasives like ordinary sand was used to process hard stones such as granite. However, the nature of the marks on Babylonian stone slabs indicated otherwise. They bore deep, perfectly straight cuts that could only have been made by an ultra-hard metal tool rotating at high speed. A stone processing specialist present at the excavation unhesitatingly stated that such a result is produced by a modern milling machine. The hypothesis of mechanized processing in antiquity could significantly expand our understanding of the history of technological development. During the final stage of surveying the workshops, the team discovered an unusual device consisting of bronze gears. The mechanism was severely damaged by time, but even its fragments indicated that it was part of some calculating device. Modern historiography asserts that the first complex mechanical instruments were created in Europe no earlier than the Renaissance. Historians are convinced that the technological capabilities of the ancients were limited to creating levers and primitive pulleys. However, the discovered artifacts served as proof that engineers in Babylon knew how to construct machines for calculating planetary trajectories. Such discoveries pose difficult questions for science and demand a re-examination of established views. Each such artifact is a silent testament to how much we underestimate our ancestors, who possessed manufacturing secrets that were lost for many thousands of years. During excavations in the central part of Babylon, an archaeological team uncovered a story hidden not only beneath layers of soil, but also in local legends. An elderly worker, who had assisted the expedition from the beginning, once led the professor to a spot where a sinkhole had formed after a heavy rain. Deep within this gully, the edge of a massive slab, sealed with natural resin, was visible. The old man whispered that his grandfather had called this place the House of Silence, where, according to rumor, ancient priests kept the voice of the heavens. When researchers managed to move the slab, they found a narrow passage leading into a small room with astonishing acoustic properties. Tall clay vessels lined the perimeter of the room, their mouths facing the center. In official science, it is widely believed that such jars were only intended for storing wine or grain. University historians are also convinced Babylonian architecture focused solely on external grandeur. However, this room disproved both assertions. If a person spoke even a whisper in the center of the room, their voice was amplified many times over and returned as if through a powerful loudspeaker. Expedition members with engineering backgrounds were astonished by the precision in calculating the angles of the walls and the shape of the vessels. It became clear that sound was as integral to Babylonian life as food. Such rooms could have hosted important city councils or judicial proceedings, where a judge's voice needed to sound authoritative and imposing without any effort. This was not magic, but a deep understanding of the laws of physics, which ancient engineers applied to better organize life in a vast city. Another inexplicable story concerned the lighting of Babylon's enormous buildings. For a long time, archaeologists were puzzled by how people could work in deep, windowless halls. Academic circles generally believed that ancient civilizations used oil lamps or torches. However, scientists found no trace of soot on the ceilings of these structures. If open flames had burned there for many years, the stone vaults would have been absolutely black. Historians often disregard this fact, assuming the walls might have been regularly cleaned. But one team member discovered fragments of a mirror system made of polished bronze in an inner courtyard. These mirrors were mounted on movable structures. By directing a beam of light from outside to a specific point, this system could transmit it to the most remote rooms. It was a kind of ancient light pipe, allowing bright sunlight to flood the underground areas. This find explained why the daily life of Babylon's inhabitants seemed so clean. They didn't pollute the air with fire. They literally invited the sun into their homes. Such discoveries force a reevaluation of established views. And if you are interested in following similar stories, subscribe to the channel. The study of the daily lives of ordinary citizens proved particularly fascinating. In one dwelling, archaeologists found an unusual stone bathtub to which two pipes were connected, one from above, one from below. Official history claims that in antiquity, people bathed by simply pouring water from basins. It is also believed that the process of heating water in that era was extremely laborious. However, beneath the floor of this tub, a small chamber was found, designed for smoldering coals, operating on the principle of a modern boiler. A Babylonian resident could enjoy a hot bath after a day's work by simply lighting a small fire in a special compartment. This level of comfort only appeared in Europe 2,000 years later. Incredible discoveries were hidden in the most mundane objects. For instance, in the kitchen of one house, a copper pot was found with inner walls coated in a thin layer of silver. Modern science tends to consider this merely a decorative element, but from a practical standpoint, silver has disinfectant properties and helps water stay fresh much longer. It turns out that ancient Babylonian housewives were aware of the properties of metals and used them to protect their families from illness. They weren't just cooking, they were applying chemical knowledge in their daily lives. This story, hidden beneath the ruins of Babylon, demonstrates that we often underestimate our ancestors, deeming them primitive. But when you see their water supply, mirror lighting, and heating systems, you realize that their daily lives were organized far more intelligently and ecologically than ours. Researchers discovered not just ruins, but evidence of a civilization that knew how to live in harmony with nature, using its intellect to create comfort without destroying the surrounding world. To truly understand how the findings beneath Babylon change history, they should be viewed not as magical artifacts, but as evidence of an exceptionally high level of engineering ingenuity. Each such discovery poses a serious challenge to official textbooks, which tend to portray ancient humans as skilled but limited artisans. Continuing excavations, archaeologists found a city planning system beneath the sand layer that was astonishing in its logic. Along the main streets, remnants of unusual structures made of baked brick were discovered, inside which copper rods were fixed in thick natural resin. In academic circles, it is generally believed that copper in those times was used exclusively for jewelry, weapons, or simple utensils. Historians are convinced that any assumptions about knowledge of electricity or energy transmission in antiquity are nothing more than speculation. But if these copper structures were indeed intended to protect buildings from lightning or to dissipate static electricity, it means that the Babylonians understood the physics of atmospheric phenomena thousands of years before Benjamin Franklin. Such a discovery completely changes our understanding of how well-planned and safe life was in the ancient metropolis. Manifestations of astonishing precision are found in the daily lives of ordinary citizens. In a craftsman's quarter, archaeologists stumbled upon a stone processing workshop containing basalt slabs polished to a mirror shine. According to modern scientific understanding, such polishing in ancient times would have required many months of grueling manual labor using sand and water. However, microscopic examination of the stone surface revealed tiny circular marks characteristic of a rotating tool. This observation suggests the possible existence of, albeit primitive, effective machines among the Babylonians. Confirmation of this hypothesis would necessitate a re-evaluation of the entire history of technological development. In that case, it would mean that the mechanization of labor processes originated not in the 15th century, but in the distant past, with this knowledge subsequently lost over time. Another piece of evidence that challenges established scientific dogmas relates to medicine and chemistry. Archaeologists discovered a set of narrow-necked ceramic vessels in one dwelling. Chemical analysis of their contents revealed the presence of acids and various metal salts. The accepted historical concept states that chemistry as a scientific discipline originated only in the Middle Ages through the works of alchemists. Researchers are accustomed to believing that ancient peoples used only natural materials in their pristine form. Nevertheless, the discovered vessels could have been used for gilding jewelry. If Babylonian artisans employed a method of chemical gold deposition instead of conventional forging, this demonstrates their deep knowledge of the composition of matter. The daily life of a wealthy Babylonian was surrounded by objects whose creation required complex laboratories, which no one had previously suspected existed. The system that supplied the city with food deserves separate consideration. Along the irrigation canals, archaeologists found fragments of mechanisms driven by the force of the river current. These devices consisted of gear transmissions made of durable wood and bronze. According to the widely accepted version, such complex transmission mechanisms only emerged during the period of ancient Greece. However, the finds from Babylon demonstrate that automated field irrigation was a common occurrence there. This fact introduces corrections to the history of economics. The presence of agricultural machinery freed up time for the population, which could then be devoted to scientific and creative pursuits. This might explain why Babylon became a global cultural center. At the same time, the question remains unresolved. Why did these technologies not spread further, and why were they forgotten for centuries? Such discoveries force us to look at the past in a new light. And to not miss other amazing facts about ancient civilizations, you should subscribe to the channel. The mystery of these artifacts lies not in their seeming futurism, but in how organically and intelligently they were integrated into daily life. In simple residential buildings, devices for tracking shadows were found, making it possible to determine time with minute accuracy. It is generally believed that for ancient people, time was an abstract category. But Babylon demonstrates the opposite. Their existence was strictly organized and subject to mathematical principles. Official recognition of all these facts will change the perception of human history as a slow and difficult path of development from a primitive state. Instead, it will resemble a series of brilliant breakthroughs. The Babylonian civilization was one such breakthrough, where human genius managed to organize a comfortable and technologically advanced daily life using available materials. Every discovered element of a mechanism or chemical substance in an ancient vessel serves as a reason to realize that we are not the discoverers of complex ideas. Our predecessors followed their own path, and it was significantly more advanced than depicted in outdated textbooks. In further studies, archaeologists focused on the organization of Babylonian daily life across entire urban districts. One of the most significant discoveries was an underground ventilation system that permeated the entire city. In academic circles, it was commonly believed that ancient cities were stuffy, odor-filled places where inhabitants suffered from the heat. University specialists assert that in that era, building ventilation was provided only through open windows and doorways. However, beneath the ruins of Babylon, an entire network of vertical shafts was found, extending deep into the earth and connected to horizontal corridors. Water, supplied by hidden underground channels, was constantly present at the bottom of these shafts. Upon entering such a shaft, the hot desert air instantly cooled upon contact with the water and, under pressure, was directed into living quarters through special openings in the floors. This technology was a natural air conditioning system, functioning without any engines. Thanks to it, the daily life of an ordinary citizen was protected from the exhausting heat. Residents could enjoy coolness in their homes, while the outside temperature exceeded 40 degrees Celsius. This discovery radically changes our views on ancient architecture and proves that the Babylonians mastered the art of airflow management with precision comparable to modern engineering solutions. The mystery of this engineering solution only deepened after fragments of unusual filters were discovered in one of the ventilation nodes. The structure consisted of several layers of fine mesh copper netting and palm fibers, which were impregnated with a disinfecting substance. According to widely accepted scientific views, the concept of air hygiene did not emerge until the 20th century. It is generally believed that in antiquity, people had no understanding of dust or microorganisms carried by air currents. However, the presence of these filters indicates that the inhabitants of Babylon paid attention to the quality of the air they breathed. They purposefully filtered it from sand particles and other pollutants, thereby creating a special microclimate within the city. This speaks of the existence of a civilization for which human health and comfort were the highest priority, and deep knowledge in biology and physics was applied to achieve these goals. In the Market District, researchers discovered a structure that apparently served as an ancient archive or bank. Not the thousands of clay tablets inside attracted the main attention of scientists, but the design of the shelves themselves. The shelves were made of baked wood and treated with a special lacquer that possessed fire-resistant properties. An attempt to ignite a fragment of this coating only resulted in slight darkening. The material did not catch fire. It is commonly believed that the creation of fire-resistant materials only became possible in recent centuries due to the development of the chemical industry. However, the inhabitants of Babylon already knew how to protect important documents from fires, which were frequent occurrences in densely built-up urban areas. The daily life of a Babylonian official or banker included items ensuring information security. They did not just use clay for records, but also created protective systems that we consider a modern invention. In the same building, unusual seals were found, made from a metal alloy that prevented counterfeiting by simple casting. Each such seal had a unique microscopic pattern, visible only under a specific lighting angle, comparable to an ancient analog of a modern hologram. This discovery forces a new look at the history of forensics and law, demonstrating that Babylon's financial system was protected far more securely than generally assumed in the scientific community. On the outskirts of the city, researchers found the ruins of an irrigation system that supplied water not only to agricultural lands, but also to private citizens' gardens. Modern science describes Mesopotamian irrigation as a primitive process based on the heavy and inefficient manual labor of slaves drawing water with leather buckets. Nevertheless, an automatic sluice system was discovered beneath Babylon. These mechanisms activated independently when the water in the canal reached a certain level. The design included cork floats and stone counterweights. When the water level rose, the float actuated a lever that opened a gate to supply water to the desired section. When the water level dropped, the system automatically closed. This technology allowed for round-the-clock garden irrigation without human intervention. The life of a Babylonian gardener was automated to a level that seems fantastic for that era. Thanks to this, the city was literally immersed in greenery, presenting a flourishing oasis in the middle of the desert. This find radically changes perceptions of the history of agriculture. The mystery of the discoveries reached its peak with the finding of a time capsule in one of the foundations. Inside was a city plan, drawn on a thin bronze sheet. The plan indicated communication lines that archaeologists had not yet excavated at that time. Most strikingly, the map's scale was maintained with millimeter precision. Academic science asserts that ancient maps were inaccurate and schematic due to the lack of instruments for measuring long distances. However, this bronze plate proves otherwise. The inhabitants of Babylon possessed topographical surveying methods that allowed them to perceive the city as a whole, as if they were observing it from a great height. These discoveries, one after another, paint a picture of a completely different ancient world. If you are interested in following such investigations that change the view of history, subscribe to the channel. In the final stage of excavations, researchers stumbled upon a writing supplies depot. Among ordinary clay styluses, unusual pens with metal nibs and an internal ink reservoir were found. Essentially, these were prototypes of modern fountain pens. According to official history, such pens only appeared in the 19th century. It is believed that in ancient times, people constantly had to dip writing instruments into inkwells, making the process slow and messy. However, Babylonian scribes could work for hours without interruption, which radically changes our understanding of the history of writing and education. This suggests that the speed of information exchange in Babylon was significantly higher than commonly believed. All these artifacts, from fireproof coatings to automated irrigation systems, form an image of a world where humans were not slaves to nature, but its partners, skillfully applying the laws of physics for their own comfort. The history of humanity taught today appears incomplete, as it overlooks the ingenious solutions of ancient engineers. Babylon, hidden underground, continued to reveal its secrets, confirming that progress lies not only in electricity and the internet, but primarily in the mind's ability to find simple and effective solutions to complex problems. Moving further along the ancient streets, archaeologists discovered a well-preserved residential house. Inside, an object was found that was initially mistaken for an ordinary kitchen utensil, a massive stone slab with a smooth depression and a heavy cylinder perfectly fitted to it. Academic science often classifies such finds as grain grinders, painting a picture of grueling and endless manual labor performed by ancient women, which consumed all their time. However, a more detailed examination revealed traces of a drive belt attachment on the cylinder's axis. It turned out that this mill was part of a compact mechanical device powered by a domestic animal or a small water wheel. The woman did not have to grind grain by hand for hours. She simply poured it in, and the mechanism did all the work. This was genuine ancient home appliance technology, freeing up time for other activities such as raising children or education. Such an artifact fundamentally changes the perception of Babylon's social structure. It shows that even in ordinary families, people's time and labor were valued, and engineering thought worked to ease daily life. This serves as proof that progress in antiquity affected not only palaces and temples, but also penetrated every home. A gas lighting system, which official science considers a 19th century invention, was discovered by archaeologists in a very ordinary Babylonian house. Natural gas was supplied from a well through a network of bamboo and clay pipes that led to the main room of the house, equipped with a bronze valve. A ceramic inset nozzle was responsible for regulating the flame, ensuring even burning. Such a convenience was not a luxury item, but a standard feature for any dwelling. In the pantry of the same dwelling, researchers discovered hermetically sealed containers made of a special type of ceramic with an internal glazed coating. The contents of one of the opened vessels astonished scientists. The oil inside had not spoiled for millennia and retained all its qualities, which contradicts official history of medicine and chemistry regarding the impossibility of such long-term food preservation without vacuum packaging or modern additives. It is commonly believed that ancient people constantly suffered from spoiled food, but the secret lay in the Babylonians' use of natural resins and a special mineral composition of the ceramics, which created an antibacterial environment inside the vessel. This was true applied biology, integrated into the daily life of an ordinary family. No less interesting to archaeologists was the construction of the bedroom floor in this dwelling. It had a double structure, and traces of burnt herbs and charcoal were found in the space between the brick layers. This discovery refutes modern scientific notions that ancient heating was limited to smoky and sooty hearths in the center of a room, and that people escaped winter cold by wrapping themselves in animal skins. The discovered underfloor heating system indicates that the Babylonians were familiar with the principles of convection. From a small furnace located outside the house, hot air circulated under the floor, warming the sleeping areas and preventing combustion products from entering the living space. Such a level of comfort is considered an attribute of luxury real estate today, whereas for the Babylonians, it was the norm of quality living. Such astonishing facts, changing our view of the past, regularly appear on our channel, so don't forget to subscribe to not miss anything. A surprising aspect of these discoveries was their ubiquity. It wasn't about unique items for the wealthy, but an entire urban culture focused on convenience. In a neighboring quarter, archaeologists unearthed a shoemaker's workshop. Inside, samples of sandals were found, equipped with shock-absorbing soles featuring layers of resilient cork and thin copper wire. This contradicts academic science, which claims that ancient footwear was primitively flat and harmful to the foot, and that orthopedics as a science only developed in the last 100 years. Babylonian craftsmen, however, created footwear that reduced strain on the spine during long walks on paved streets. These small engineering solutions protected the health of citizens who frequently traveled for trade or construction. The discoveries made in Babylonia compel a radical reevaluation of historical textbooks. Previous perceptions of the ancient world as an era of superstition and primitive manual labor give way to an understanding that our ancestors possessed very sophisticated technologies. The very fact that thousands of years ago people used gas lighting, complex mechanisms, and even chemical principles for gilding metals changes historical chronology. It appears that the origins of the scientific and industrial revolutions should be sought not in Europe a few centuries ago, but in the distant past. It is likely that much of this knowledge was simply lost over time. Such discoveries transform history from a linear path of progress into a series of rises and falls. They show that humanity had already achieved a high level of comfort without oil and electricity. These facts prompt scientists to acknowledge that ancient civilizations were not merely a stage on the path to modernity, but self-sufficient and highly developed worlds. The history of Babylon reminds us that great knowledge can be lost if not valued, and that we are not the first to learn how to harness the forces of nature to create a comfortable life.